Good morning. Good morning as folks are joining. Hi, Paris. We'll give folks.
Hello,
I am coming up mute. Good to see you.
you as well.
I will, is Miriam here?
Good morning. I'm here. I'm just getting my camera
Oh,
synced
good
with
morning.
everything.
Okay, great.
So sorry.
No worries. We'll give folks a minute to join. It's good to see folks. We are recording this morning. Um, Let me see. Okay. Sounds like someone's having some leaf blowing happening between. Um, so good morning and welcome to the 9:30 call. We're so excited to see everyone today. And it is a beautiful spring day here in Boston. So as we are joining, we are so excited to have with us Miriam Sutton and Paris Pierce. We did have folks on. We had from the center in Connecticut, but we're so excited to kind of have a part two of that conversation. So our first question for each of you is for you to tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be in your current role, and then we're excited to hear more about your work.
I'll start.
Great, thanks, Pierce.
Hi, my name is Paris Pierce. I'm a current educator at Friends Center for Children. I work in the preschool classroom, and I came into this role. I was living in Ohio, and then I moved. I was working in Ohio in early childhood education, and then I moved to back to Connecticut. And I was just looking for a job, and I came across Friends Center. And when I walked in here, I was just wowed away by just the environment, the aura. So at first it was just a job, but then I grew to love it. So this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So here I am,
That's great, Pierce. And Pierce, can you remind us where in Connecticut the Friends Center is?
New Haven, Connecticut, and I'm
Great.
also attendant in the housing initiative.
Yes, we're so excited to hear more about that. And Miriam, are you ready to go?
I am here. I apologize. I'm not sure what's happening with my video, and I'm so sad to say that, but good morning. And I'm just grateful to be here. I'm gonna work on my video as we go through, but my name is Miriam Sutton, and I do serve as program director at Friends Center for Children. This is my 6th year at Friends Center, and as a staff member, but it's my second time around as a parent community. And so actually, I have an alumni child, Emery, who's 14 years old and thriving her first year of high school, and a soon to be 2-year-old, Maverick, who is currently in our program. And I was drawn to Friends Center initially because it was a values-based program and it was play-based. And most importantly, it was very committed to social justice. And so that's really how I became connected with the center and sort of why I chose the, the position and to be present as a part of the community.
Wonderful. Miriam, do you want to try to log off and log back in?
Yes, let me try that. Thank you.
Okay. And so, Paris, when we read the description of what you are here to talk about today, is that Friends Center for Children's emotional well-being program takes a holistic approach to caring for educators, families, and children. And
Yes.
so, the description talks about a discussion to talk about your unique program centers the whole person to support teachers and work beyond helping young learners at school and at home. So, do you want to kick off the conversation and give us an update?
Yeah, so our emotional well-being is basically another word for social worker, but we don't want to put the word social worker up there. So for me, it's just not about the children. It's also about the educator. But even though the children are the primary focus, um, it's to create an environment for our friends to thrive, Friends Center is dedicated to making sustained investments in the educators as well as the child care system overall. Um, they created a rent-free housing initiative, which is a pathway to social emotional learning for educators like myself. The impact is woven through the entire organization. Um, the early child care education system is in the crisis. They pay us very low wages, um, and we are basically the backs of childhood education. Um, it's personal for me because when I moved from Ohio, I knew I wanted to work in childhood education, but I also had to think about how was I going to take care of my children, which will work on your mental. So I'm so thankful for Friends Center to offer that. When we come in, we check in on the mood meter, and the mood meter is a way for us to express how we are feeling. We have red, yellow, blue, and green, which are happy, angry, calm, sad, and the children also has the mood meter, which is a great way, because we're all human. We all feel a type of way. But it's not all about that. We go through things, and sometimes it's hard to leave it outside of work. So we get 30-minute sessions with the social well-being counselor. We do check-ins. They help us with resources, not only us, our families. Um, yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about your living situation and kind of how that came to be? Alexei shared kind of about kind of how it came to be kind of from the structural point, but from your perspective as someone who's living there, can you tell us a bit more about that experience?
Yes, it's just like a regular apartment. I had to sign a lease, and I got approved. I moved in. So we meet with a financial coach monthly to help us with goals. Right now, my goal is to become a homeowner. My past goals was saving money. Um, yeah, we meet with our social emotional well-being counselor once a month to see how things are going. Um, it's just a wonderful initiative because it lets me show up to work and be my best self, a stress-free person. And my children at work get that full person from me, and my children at home, without having to worry about how I'm gonna pay my next bill.
Right.
The only thing I do have to pay for is utilities, but I still have a little extra money to play with, like put my children in extracurricular activities, get them the things they want instead of the things they need. They get a better version of me. I'm more present, less stressed out mom. Yeah, it gives me a peace of mind. And it's just not about not paying rent, it's to set you up for a better future.
That's incredible. And just the way you were talking about kind of the holistic approach for the adults too. You oftentimes will have some of those tools for the children, but we don't talk about the adults. Hello and welcome, Miriam. It looks like you joined from your phone,
I
making it
did.
work. That's the spirit of the 9:30
That's it.
call.
That's it. You gotta adjust, pivot, do whatever is necessary, and we know that as early care and
That's
education
right. We are your
professionals.
people. We are with you. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for Paris for doing the intro and getting everyone sort of in tune with your story. And I'm just going to share a bit of history about our center and really talk through sort of the emotional well-being program and how it was initiated. So Friends Center began with 4 children in the basement of the Quaker Meeting House in New Haven, Connecticut in 2007. And today we serve 149 children across 3 sites in New Haven, and with another site that's underway, which opens in May or June of 2026. So we're very excited about that.
That's
And
great.
with our expansion, we'll be able to provide high quality early care and education to over 250 families when that site is up and running. At the center of our work in our emotional well-being program, it takes a holistic approach really to caring for educators, families, and children. And we define holistic as being attentive to how trauma can interrupt natural, physical, and mental and emotional growth processes for people. Um, and educators, in order to make sure that folks are feeling like they are their best selves and they're actually thriving in the work that they do, we think that having this approach be forward facing in our work is very critical. And so it's really a set of attitudes and practices that support the optimal personal, sorry, I'm going to keep moving myself around here because I'm not on my laptop, and interprofessional functioning at Friend Center. And we look at each person as a whole, person, and think about how we can support the work of our teachers, but also support our youngest learners at school and their families at home. And we also recognize the effects of adverse childhood experiences on children and their caregivers and ways that we can counterbalance those effects. And we recognize that the residual effects of individual and cultural trauma on adults in our community, has to be a part of our work. It's not either or, it's not really an option because some people are coming with these experiences. And that is why the emotional well-being program is so critical for us. So though our program was initially designed to support children facing difficult circumstances impacting their physical and mental health and their relationships with peers and caregivers and also their ability to learn, the program now works to address the needs of everyone in our community, including our families and educators and staff. So Friend Center educators do take part in monthly emotional well-being check-ins to really gauge how educators are feeling about their work, what they're proud of, what they have learned about themselves, and how our emotional well-being team could further support the educators in order to help them feel their best selves at work. And so by providing an avenue for educators to share, their experiences, any barriers they may have to showing up, we're taking different steps to support them inside school and outside of school. And so Paris did mention earlier, I think about the mood meter as one tool that we use as part of our emotional well-being program. And that is really asking folks, how do you feel, as they come into work each day? And in addition to that question is offering them ongoing space for reflection on their interactions with others, their practices in the classroom, to stay tuned so we can stay in tune with anything that may arise. And they can also do the same that would impact their well-being, as they're doing the things they're doing each day. As part of our emotional well-being program, we also have a staff support program. We also have a staff support program, which is responsive to individual needs. And those can include 30-minute sessions with an emotional well-being coordinator and meet, as many times as the educator needs. And, if it becomes this situation where they need really additional support, then that emotional well-being coordinator can connect them to outside resources, for example. We also provide financial hardship loans and grants as part of that staff support program. There's also mentorship in any area that the individual may need. So, for example, some people are doing driving lessons, some people want help with budgeting. We can provide mentorship with other community members who would like to support those needs or people in the community if that's necessary. We also have an employee child tuition discount as part of our staff support program, tuition reimbursement. And of course, our one of its kind free teacher housing initiative, which was all born out of the emotional well-being approach.
And Miriam, I added in the chat. So when Alex was here, she was so clear about the mission, and was just one of the best speakers we've heard about how you support this. Can you talk? And I think this is like so many people have this goal, and it can be so hard to do because most you feel like you're understaffed, you're running around.
Yeah.
I always said there's no lonelier feeling than when you're the educator in a classroom waiting for another adult to come in, the
Yes.
room. And can you talk a little bit about kind of how you were able to kind of shift the mindset and then what resources were available? And then did you also reprioritize resources? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think just being really clear that the emotional well-being program is connected to the very values that created the program. And so I think one of the things is that it wasn't so much of an afterthought
Right.
It was a must have, considering what you understand about your community. So anyone going into deciding, how to create a more of a wellness space in their community is thinking about the things you're already doing and thinking about the commitment that you already have, and start small. Just decide, what place is it? Do you want to think about more time out of the classroom? Do you want to think about creating an hour a week for someone to take space? It can be that small.
Right.
And we have had to revamp and pivot on what types of resources. And one of the ways that we do that is by doing a ACEs stressor checklist
Yep.
for all of our families and all of our staff upon either enrollment or hire. A lot of these are confidential surveys that
Right.
each family fills it out, but then it goes to the emotional well-being coordinator. Their name doesn't have to be on it all the time.
Yep.
And they can also ask for a confidential conversation
Yeah.
to talk about what it is that they need as individuals. And that, once we have that data, we can say, okay, these are the themes that we're seeing in our community, or here's a resource we haven't thought about that someone may need. And we add that to our library of resources. And that is looked at twice a year and redistributed each year to families and to everyone in our community.
That's great. There was a thought in chat about these services are so wonderful. Where does the money come from? And
Mm,
Alex talked very explicitly about the housing piece. So I put the link in the chat about her 9:30 call when she was here. And I just think the way that you're talking about the community, both like as an abundance mindset, that the community has things to offer and you all have, things to offer the community. Paris, can you talk a little bit about what it feels like to be an educator in this kind of context?
I feel valued, I feel seen, and I feel heard, which is rare. Like, this is the longest I've been at a job, and that speaks volumes to me.
Yes.
Um, when I first walked in here to apply for the job for an interview, I just felt welcomed. I love how they see their employers, or their educators, their staff. Um, it makes you want to come to work and show up. Yeah, I just feel valued.
That's significant. That is not a small thing. Um, Miriam, can you talk a little bit about the structure? Kind of how are you structured? What does it look like in staffing to kind of help support educators?
Yeah, so our current team of emotional well-being coordinators is growing to three this year. We are working on hiring an emotional well-being director to oversee sort of the resources and the staffing. We also have a robust internship program, and so we
Mhm.
partner with local universities and colleges, even community colleges, to attract, folks who are in mental health degree programs, and a lot of people doing social work and human services internships within our program through our emotional well-being program. So that is an arm that is very useful and that we lean into, because you do need a lot of support to make sure that you're delivering sort of what people need.
And there's a few questions in chat. And so first, somebody asked about if there was a connection to Quaker, and which you covered kind of simultaneously as somebody was asking the question. Um, so is Friends Center linked to the Quaker Friends Church School and Camps?
Correct. So we are a member of the Friends Council on Education, which is the national accreditation or membership body for Friends schools. And we're very connected to our Friends Center, our New Haven Friends meeting, where we were founded in the basement.
And then the ACEs assessment, is there a link for that tool? And then Andrea Parker added, the ACEs are such a great improvement tool to be more self-aware. The average is 3 out of 10 adverse childhood experiences for each American who was surveyed. The actual average is likely higher. So we can put that link in chat. Are you all tracking the effects of these resources that on the edge having on the educators and the children they are educating?
Yes, so we definitely track all of the services and resources that are provided throughout each year. And then we do a report, an assessment of, how many people accessed what, Um, Also, we look at sort of the impact and we get sort of impact statements as well from families about, how did our intentions land? Because it's one thing to create all these resources and deliver things to folks, but in the end, was it helpful? And so we do track that internally, and we're looking at doing some studies of like our first group of children from Friend Center are sort of going to graduate from high school, that kind of thing. And how do we track sort of the impact over time? So there's a couple ways that we're definitely looking at data.
Great. And then what are your credentials for your emotional well-being coordinators, social workers, mental health counselors?
Yeah, so we have had folks who have degrees in bachelor's, master's degrees. Um, we've had licensed clinical social worker, currently master's level coordinators we have one who has a specialty in neurodivergent learners, and currently we're hoping to find a licensed clinical professional to be the director of the program, but we're so conscious of um, the disparities in leading with degrees. And so we are looking at everyone's holistic experiences to really decide, what will be a good fit in our community. But we do have a licensed mental health consultant that is a part of our program every year that we have contracted as well.
And then where do you still see challenges? So I'm sure you right, all these important resources you put in place, but I'm sure you're still working through some stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think challenges arise in just living in an under resourced and underfunded system, right? And um, just understanding that everyone that is responsible for providing the resources that we need to deliver it don't always see the human work as valuable, right, or necessary. And I think that is an ongoing challenge. And then another, challenge is making sure that we stay in tune with the balance between, caring for people and having that relationship
Right.
focused and relationship driven experience as an employer, and then like running a business and making sure that that stays balanced because
Right.
again, like Paris said, working somewhere where, okay, they actually are considering and thinking about me and like what's going on with me outside of the role I have in their business, um, is a first time thing for folks. And so just being mindful and staying on top of navigating that balance, I think can be challenging, but it's not a challenge that we haven't figured out and continue to figure out. But I know it comes across and it's something that people are always interested in knowing about.
Right. Um, and Paris, so we talk a lot about advocacy and, being seen, being heard by policymakers. So if you could talk to a Connecticut legislator or somebody in Congress right now, what would you want them to know about kind of your experience and what they should do to help support educators?
Um, First, look at us women because I feel like women is like the main educators in child care
Yep.
education, and just see how important child care education is. Children learn mostly everything at this young age, and if parents don't work,
Right.
yeah, parents can't work if there is no child care education. So, see us, pay us.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Paris. And Miriam, what about you? What would you want to talk to folks about?
I would really, really impress upon legislators and policymakers to really recognize that early care and education is not optional. It is necessary. It impacts every single industry in our economy, and it is what can really shape the future of our society to be what we want, which is we want thriving, um, productive, um, and connected, individuals in our future generations to be a part of continuing, our society. And so if we want that, then we have to really invest in
Mm.
the work and invest in early care and education, invest in people, because childcare is a public good.
And Miriam, I'm sure you get this question all the time. Like, what advice would you have for folks who are kind of in your situation? They're running a program, they're in a program. I'm sure sometimes people say this sounds too good to be true. What advice would you have for people about how to get started?
Again, I would say really start small, ask your educators what they want and what would help them feel valued and what would increase their well-being, and take their voice and go from there. I mean, you, as long as you include their voice in the process and honor what you actually can do and don't over promise, you will be okay. You know, just start small and just start.
That's good advice. I think that it can be overwhelming, but starting
It
small,
is.
because sometimes I think, as Paris said, like it can feel like just pay us. Like we hear that all the time, especially from people who are doing the work. Sometimes we try to work around the edges and spend a lot of time there instead of really being intentional, asking educators what they want, trusting educators that they'll tell us. And then, like you said, not over promising and under delivering, but really to make some of those small changes. As folks are in the chat, please continue to show your love and appreciation for Miriam and Paris. Paris, we also know how hard it is to sneak out of a classroom, so we especially appreciate that for joining us. And we did record this, and I think also a lot of interest in ACEs. So 9:30 callers, if you know someone that can come speak to us about ACEs, that might be a great call to think about, because I know so many people are using it. We've also heard folks really connecting with legislators and legislators filling out ACEs to really understand how powerful that tool can be.
Can
Uh,
I add one thing,
sure.
please? I just want to share, because of, the success of our emotional well-being program, we are developing a curriculum to share with
Oh,
early
great.
care and education programs, and it will convey, what works for all, but not, it won't convey what everything that works for all, but
Right.
um, not just children, but it will share the elements that, we feel have been successful and offer guidelines and different mechanisms. So we will be getting that out. And so hopefully that will also support people in developing something that works for their community.
Well, and we would love to have you come back to tell us more about that, because I think having as many tools as possible for folks. So that's incredible that you'll be developing that resource. Oh,
Thank you.
and Paris answered the question about how she found the Friends Center and Indeed. All right, that's pretty great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy that you guys were back on the 9:30 call, and please come back anytime. We'd love to hear and kind of continue to watch the progress that you're
Thank
making.
you so much for the
Thank you for having
invitation.
us.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
everyone.
9:30 callers. We will tomorrow's Friday, so we will not be here. Let me take a quick peek at what's happening next Monday. Next Monday we will hear from oh, oh my gosh, from Aiden Roman. Tuesday we're going to hear from the SFC interns. And so look for the schedule for next week. We will see you then. Have a great Thursday and a good weekend.
You
Take
as
care. Go
well.
Celtics.